Welcome to The Nightmare Continues. I know the world is scary right now, but it's gonna get way worse. Plastic waste has gotten pretty bad. It's gotten so bad that there's even an island of plastic larger than the state of Texas. In a statement by the director of Trash Free Seas, he said, "The United States generates the most plastic waste of any other country in the world." But rather than looking the problem in the eye, we have outsourced it to developing countries and became a top contributor to the ocean's plastic crisis. Now, how did we get here? Well, for starters,
some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
a classic anti-littering ad, but the problem is, it was nothing more than just propaganda funded by the beverage and packing industry. See, Keep America Beautiful made that ad a year after the first Earth Day of 1970, where people protested to hold the industry accountable for the waste they produced. But ads like that successfully moved the conversation away from them onto you. And when legislation would pop up to require corporations to use reusable containers, leadership of Keep America Beautiful would call those who supported that communist. It was all a fake front. Even the actor wasn't even Native American. This was just some Italian dude pretending to be one because of course he was. We've been played, and it's been half a century since then, and so much money has exchanged hands to allow these corporations to do whatever they want that the planet was the one that paid the real price. There's trillions of plastic pieces in our oceans, with millions of tons piling on each year. To put that into perspective, let's see what one of the current YouTubers, Mr. Beast, is doing to combat it. He has a project which raised $30 million to remove 30 million pounds, which is pretty nice. Unfortunately, compared to how much is put into the oceans every year, that time span of 3 years only accounts for an average of less than 0.2% of all the plastic that's put into the ocean by that time being removed. And beyond just plastic, there's something else that's also needed to make it, and that keeps ending up in our oceans as well. And that's oil.
Good evening. With every hour, it's becoming more apparent that one of the most pristine coastlines in the world has been fouled in a way that may never be undone.
The oil that rendered this otter's fur worthless now dooms the animal to death. It will die without knowing what is happening to it or why.
The spill continues to spread at this hour. It's now covering an area greater than that of the state of Rhode Island. It is by far the largest oil spill in the history of North America.
This is where we introduce ExxonMobil, one of the largest oil companies in the world, headquarters right in Texas. They're also responsible for one of the largest oil spills in US history. In 1989, they spilled 11 million gallons into the Alaskan waters. The lives of local residents and workers were ruined. Wildlife like birds, otters, seals, whales, you name it, dead. It was a disaster, one that still impacts the area to this day. Since then, they've said sorry, and they paid a couple of settlements, as well as taking legal action against the government because apparently it was too harsh and unfair for them to be barred from those waters after, spilling 11 million gallons of oil. I guess. Going far back enough, they also used to just flex, saying that they supplied enough energy to melt glaciers. Totally not something messing with us these days. Totally not something that's going to cause the water levels to rise, which is going to make it catastrophic for coastal cities around the world.
huge glacier in the western Antarctic that's the size of the state of Florida. That glacier, known as Thwaites, is basically holding back enough ice to raise sea level around the world by 10 feet. A new study found that the ice shelf holding that ice in place could be gone in less than a decade.
Totally not. Also, when pressured about what they were doing to our planet, they argued against it, like in 1993 when they said, "The media hype proclaiming that the sky was falling did not properly portray the consensus of the scientific community." But it did. Their own scientists actually warned them, as far back as 1977. One of their scientists even told the oilmen that carbon dioxide from the world's use of fossil fuels would warm the planet and could eventually endanger humanity. They knew, they just lied. That same scientist even said that some areas would gain more rainfall and others would become deserts. These days, they do acknowledge that climate change exists, but they've taken responsibility away from themselves and again have pushed it onto you when they're the ones with the actual power to make something happen. But what about their research on alternative fuel sources? Well, the thing about that is, what research? When they spend more money advertising that they're researching it, rather than actually researching it. They would even get patents for alternative fuel sources or things that reduce carbon emission, and they would do nothing with it. They just sit on it because they, again, only want to make money from the usage of oil. They don't care about all of these alternatives. They only care about making as much money as possible because they're greedy. Not to mention, other countries can barely escape all of this plastic either. Oil lobbyists are behind pushing our government to just dump all of this plastic waste onto other countries like Kenya.
But environmentalists say so long as single-use plastic is the root, single-use plastic is the problem.
What these corporations need to do is to invest in research and development and develop alternatives to plastic materials. For example, we used to have glass bottles here in Kenya, but you realize that since they are making a lot of profits from the plastic bottles, they are not willing to invest in such reusing systems.
Considering we've only just been lied to and pretty much just told that if we just keep recycling, things will work out, and it won't, does that mean we should just stop recycling and stop using things like public transportation? Of course not. Keep doing what you can to help your own community, because things like recycling and using public transportation, those are good ideas. The problem is we need something more. We need something that actually matters, because little things like banning plastic and plastic straws for the consumer really isn't going to cut it. And it's not waiting for these politicians to do something, because they're not. These corporations are in their pockets too. Capitalism is what has allowed them to do whatever they want at your expense, at the expense of your family, and at the expense of the generations to come. The only option to actually have a real future is one where ownership is taken away from these greedy men to the people, because together we will decide what's best for all of us. Anyways, I hope you liked my first video, and if you have anything to say, please say it. And one last thing, Exxon is currently on trial for war crimes, because of course they are. Again, they really shouldn't be running things, you know?
Black bandana, black hoodie, a black mask and black gloves. Hand me your lighter, 'cause pretty comrades don't light their own Molotovs. But you don't exist, and I'm a fucking coward. I'll talk my shit, yell at the cops, then I'll run away right